Parshas Chukas, the Torah tells us that Aaron dies. We'll get back to that in a moment. And immediately following that, the pasuk says, "Vayishma Knani Melech Harad Yoshev HaNegev." It sounds like the Knani nation who is sitting in the Negev. Kiba Yisrael Derech HaAsarim Vayilachem BiYisrael. They wanted to fight the Jewish people. Rashi brings down that they saw that Ananya Kavod, the clouds of glory, which was in the merit, they existed in the merit of Aaron, disappeared. So they realized that Aaron died. And if Aaron died, they saw that as an opportune time to go ahead and fight the Jewish people. And Rashi writes something very fascinating. He says, actually, these weren't the Canaanim. Pasuk says they were the Canaanim, but they weren't really the Canaanim. Who were they? Rashi says it was Amalek. Because the pasuk says they were Yoshev B'Negev. They settled in the Negev, and another pasuk says that that's where Amalek settled. So we're talking about the Amalek nation. So why are they called the Canaanim if they're Amalekim? So Rashi says, Vishinas Lashon L'daber Lashon Canaan. They started to speak, they changed their language. Instead of speaking Amalek language, they spoke Canaanim language. So the Jewish people heard the language. They said, oh, these people in front of us are the Canaanim. So they're going to daven to Hashem, save us from this nation, save us from the Canaanim. And then the tefillah won't work, because really they're Amalekim. So they switched their language to pull a trick on Bnei Yisrael to interfere with their power of tefillah. But Rashi continues, and he says that although they changed their language, Ro Yisrael levusheim, levushei Amalekim, but they saw that the way they were dressed were like the Amalekim. So the Jews were very confused. On one hand, their voice is like the Canaanim, the words they use, the way they speak. On the other hand, the way they're dressing is like the Amalekim. So Bnei Yisrael couldn't figure out, who are these people in front of us? How do we daven? Should we daven to destroy the Amalekim, or should we daven to destroy the Canaanim? What do we do? And therefore, Rashi explains the next part of the pasuk that it says, Amru nispal stam. They're going to daven in general. Im nason titain es ha'am hazeh biadi. Next pasuk it says that if you give this nation in my hand, they didn't specify which nation it was. Pasuk Beis. Why didn't they specify which nation they wanted to capture? Because they didn't know which nation it was. On one hand, their voice, the language, the words were like the Canaanim. But on the other hand, the clothing were like the Amalekim. There's Tosos quotes in Maseches Rosh Hashanah and Daf Gimel that there seems to be another opinion. The Paitan seems to sound like they changed both their clothing and their language. And the Marsha tries to resolve over there that even that opinion holds like Rashi, that it was just the language and not the clothing. The question is, why did the Canaanim do this? Why did the Canaanim only change their language and not change their clothing? If they really want to pull a trick on Bnei Yisrael, just change everything. I would have thought even the language is even harder. So just put on a different pair of jeans and, on the Canaanim jeans, and you're good. Why did they keep the Amalekim jeans? In fact, something very fascinating, the Sefer Shiras Dovid quotes from the Medrash that it seems like the only reason Hashem answered their tefillah, their general tefillah, was out of chesed. It wasn't with the normal rules of tefillah that you ask and you get answered. But here there was like a specific act of chesed that Hashem did by answering their tefillah. In general, he quotes from Beis HaLevi, you always have to be specific in your tefillah. Like we see, Parshas Vayera, the davening was, you should save us, Hatzileni na miyad achi, save me from my brother, miyad Esav, from Esav. Saying to save me, Yaakov to say, save me from my brother, that's too general. Maybe you have a different brother, maybe you have a different relative that you call a brother. So then you go specific, and you say Esav. That's the way, says the Zohar, you're always supposed to daven in a very specific way. Here, Bnei Yisrael were general, because they didn't know what to daven for. So there was a special midah of chesed that had to come out from Hashem in order to answer Bnei Yisrael's tefillah. So, what's going on here? You have to be specific. The Amalekim were trying to pull a trick on Bnei Yisrael. What exactly? Like I said before, just pull the trick the whole direction. Switch everything. So what you see from here is something very, very important. Very, very important idea in our tefillah, which the more we get used to davening, and the more that we practice davening and become better daveners, we lose this very unique aspect, unfortunately. And we need to strengthen it up. We need to be mechazik. And that is that very often, when we start to daven, we get very general. We want the Beis HaMikdash. We want the Geula. We want people to be healed. Hashem, give me smarts. Give me the knowledge. Let me understand. Our tefillos are in general, vague. Amalek knew that is very dangerous. And that is the way to destroy all of your tefillahs. A tefillah that isn't specific with clarity of what exactly you're davening for could ruin a person's tefillah. And therefore, if they just faked it all the whole way and said, okay, it'll just be like the Knanim, and then Bnei Yisrael would give a very specific tefillah, that might have worked. But the second Bnei Yisrael were a little bit confused. Not sure, who am I davening? Who exactly do I want to conquer? Hashem, just save us. Just give us that nation, that one. Which one? That one. So all of a sudden, their tefillahs wouldn't work as well. And in fact, it wasn't going to work. A special chesed, like we quoted from the Medrash, came out and saved Bnei Yisrael. Why? Why is that so? Why does it have to be so specific in our tefillah? So we can suggest many reasons, but I want to focus on one. And that is that we have to realize when we're davening, Hashem doesn't need our tefillah. Hashem doesn't need us to ask Him for things. He can give it to us even without us asking. But the way it's supposed to come, the way that chesed is supposed to come from Hashem, is by us recognizing that we're lacking. I'm missing something. And I'm not able to do everything on my own. I'm not capable of overcoming every challenge on my own. I'm not capable of understanding everything on my own. I'm being successful on my own. I need your help, Hashem. But the first step before you ask someone for help is to recognize that you're lacking something, that you're missing something. But if you don't realize what you're lacking, then any tefillah is, why not? I'll go for it. Can't hurt. Just a little bit of my day. I'll go daven for it. But if I clearly recognize what it is that I'm lacking, what it is specifically that I want, then our whole appreciation of what Hashem does for us comes to a whole new level. And therefore, it was very important. If we realize, they're that nation, the Canaanim, the Amalekim, I remember what they did to me last time. Hashem, please let me beat them out. They caused us lots of problems last time. We got to get rid of them. I need them away from me. I need you to go in. All of a sudden, our appreciation, our desire for what we're asking for is on a whole new level. When things are clear and we can paint a picture of what exactly it is that we want, then our tefillah is so much more real. And that is the ultimate tefillah. That is the tefillah that perhaps works, it sounds like, without chesed. It's automatic. You daven for this with a very, very clear vision of what I am lacking and what I need from you, Hashem. Then the tefillah can become answered. And the Malakim knew that secret. So they said, look, I'm not letting them be clear about anything. I'm going to mix them up totally. They're going to think I'm Malakim, they're going to think Kenanim, they're just going to shoot out a general tefillah. General tefillahs aren't as meaningful. They're not as heartfelt. And therefore the chances of being answered is that much less. Baruch Hashem, we had a chesed from Hashem that we were able to get it answered. But in the rules of tefillah, that shouldn't have come about. We see this in another area. Later on in Parshas Pinchas, Moshe speaks to Hashem. He initiates, he says, Pasuk says, Perchav Zayin, Pasuk Tezvav, Daber Moshe el Hashem leimor. Moshe spoke to Hashem. Yifkod Hashem elokei ruchos l'chol basar. Hashem appoint ish ala eda. We need someone to take over for me. I'm going to die. I'm not going to be able to lead the Jewish people into Eretz Yisrael. I need a replacement. Bring me back a substitute. Asher Yetzi Lefneim is going to go in front of them. Asher Yavu Lefneim will come in front of them. Asher Yotziim will take them out. Asher Yavim will bring them in. V'lo tiyeh yadas Hashem katzona she'ein lehem roeh. It shouldn't be like a flock without a shepherd. A very long speech. Moshe could have just said to Hashem, look, I'm gone. Put someone in place. He has to be so descriptive. Coming, going, taking care of them, being a shepherd. Hashem doesn't understand why you need a leader. I mean, he was the one who told Moshe, they need a leader. Go down to Mitzrayim. Hashem knows. What's this whole discourse over here? So obviously, it's not for Hashem. Hashem doesn't need Moshe to explain to him why there needs to be a leader. Instead, it's for Moshe. Moshe needed to give like a mashal, paint a picture of what it's going to be like without a leader. What are the needs of a leader? Take them, bring them, listen to them, take care of them, lead them like a shepherd. Whoa, we really need this. And then immediately Hashem says, okay, go take Yoshua. That whole depiction, that whole story was all for Moshe to be able to understand and to focus in a whole different way about what specifically he was asking Hashem for. By going over all the attributes of a leader and the needs, it made it much more meaningful for himself. So we see from here, it's very important as we daven, and we start, before we enter any tefillah, we have to stop for a moment and say, what am I asking for? Hashem, please give me knowledge. Let me understand what I'm doing. Well, what specifically do you want to understand? I want to understand another person. I want to understand a Gemara. I want to understand a Rambam. I want to understand something in Amunah. I want to understand something in... What? Specific. What do you want? And we have to try to think about that. What specifically am I asking for? Rifa'enu. For some reason, in the bracha of Rifa'enu, that's the common place where it's inserted in the tefillah, that you could start saying Yehi Ratzon in the middle and start saying people's names. But you could also say specific things in your Ata Chonein La'adam Das. And in other parts of your tefillah. Specific. What is it exactly that I need? Why do I need it? We try to think about that. Be focused on that. And then our tefillah is so much more meaningful. We mentioned before that Aaron dies in this week's Parsha. And the pasuk says that he died, and Bnei Yisrael mourned for 30 days. Vayifku es Aaron 30 yom kol beis Yisrael. The last pasuk in Perek Chaf. 30 days. That's pretty extreme. 30 days. They cried for 30 days. Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, what was it they were crying about? Moshe said, Oy, woe to us that we lost the Amud HaTfilah, the pillar of prayer. Now, we've been learning about Aaron a lot. That Moshe was the one who was always davening, right? Aaron was the Oev Shalom, the lover of peace. Rodei Shalom was running after people to make amends and try to help people come back together again. The Kohen Gadol, he was the power of tefillah. That's why we're crying for 30 days? That's what it says in Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. It doesn't say that now people are going to get into fights and who's going to go ahead and bring them back together. It doesn't say that. It says we lost the Amud HaTfilah, the pillar of prayer. What's the deal? So I think the answer is that exact point. That Aaron was the one who loved everyone else. He cared about everyone else. He saw someone else that was in need, and he appreciated what the needs were. How did he go ahead and make two people come back together? He understood what this guy's needs were. He understood what that guy's needs were in a very, very real way. And he was able to take each one of those person's needs and bring them together. He had a very clear understanding of what was going on in other people, in other people's minds, in other people's lives. That's not so easy. Very often we're stuck in our own lives, in our own ways. So to get into another person's head, to another person's mindset, another person's livelihood, another person's sensitivities, you can't even relate to why this guy is crying or upset or sensitive or mad at you. I don't understand. I didn't do anything. But to get into that other person's life and say, oh, I got it. I understand him. That's very deep. And that person who davens, when you daven for someone else, and you really understand what's going on in their life. You really understand. It's not just, you got an email, please daven for so-and-so. Okay, I'll daven for him. And you stick it into the Shemona Esrei. So what's wrong with him? What's he going through? What's that like for his family? What's it like for him? And then you daven for such a person. That's a whole other level of davening Rifa'inu. And someone like Aaron, who totally got other people in a very, very real way, he was the one who's able to daven on a whole different other plane. And that Moshe said, we lost that. Who's going to daven for us? That's why they're all crying. Who's going to daven for us now? He understood us. He appreciated us. He knew what we needed. And with that clarity, he was able to go ahead and daven to Hashem. When you daven with clarity, and it's so obvious to what the need is, then the tefillah is able to go ahead and be successful. So we should, as we grow and we develop and we spend more time in yeshiva, and davening sometimes becomes a little bit habitual. And I once heard someone was telling me that he goes to a daf yomi shir. So that's so nice. He goes, yeah, it's really quick. Like 20 minutes, the whole page. I'm like, 20 minutes, the whole page? That's pretty fast. He goes, yeah, they daven it up. The term for going through something super quick is like, yeah, they davened it up. That's what davening means. Davening, dictionary. Really fast without thinking much about it. That's horrible, but that's the way people speak. They davened it up. That's not good. We have to take time before we go into the davening and think, what am I asking for? I know I asked for the same thing yesterday, and switch it up today. Something a little bit different. Or if you have a whole list of 15, 20 people in your Feinu, so today think about one of the other people that you mentioned, but you didn't focus on yesterday. Focus on his needs. And then we could daven with clarity. We could daven straight to Hashem. We could feel it in a whole different level. And Be'ezus Hashem, all of our tefillos will be able to be in Eskabel. Shavua Tov.